Hello, people. Rain songs. Rain songs in the sky. That's the first thing I thought of. New York game. /S. Goes with the Pamphleteers game. So, in the collaboration video, YouTube collaboration video, who wants to do a YouTube collaboration video? All kind of ideas. Like, in other words, there's a whole, the breaching method against America is left out from all kinds of logic. More people want this countered than don't. And it's against everyone. The only reason people don't want it countered when you put together the short words using revelations, and that is denied response proper. And you put more short words, denied response proper, and how it's denied proper. This is communicated to people at each age, a fact should be intrinsically distinctly. So then you get better at making the short words. But you don't make those short words that way. Now you're leaving out the way you're supposed to think from when you're the youngest age. Now, so they have investigations, the investigators and the defenses of that itself originally instilled, recorded how maintained criminally foreign influence roles with areas, locations, states, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, people on and off the forensics locations, roles with the right outcomes and wrong outcomes in cases, also roles used effectively to keep illusion stacking, effectively used to keep remotely used time treatments at all our interbranch locations since before our founding, right through the founding, and since too fast, too slow to get over on people. Forced uses of isms consciously to where they force groupthink because they're fabricating audio and video with the agency's members who are interreligious and who are interbranch, involve criminally foreign influence with the overt criminal enterprises and private ones. That's why they have, even the networks have, I'm not a licensed journalist. They attach me to others to fake words and things like this. See, when they have employed, they know, see, this is the breaching method originally instilled was a logic gate where and how we are manifest as a value/value progression. And people would blame other things, others, or ourselves for what it caused. And where and how that is manifest syntactically syntactically relative to ourselves, because it has been, because that's part of the answer to American history. But this breaching method stole our history and replaced those words, replaced actual proper positive negative identity of humanity treatments. And that's three sciences at one to discern it. Are they positively simultaneously positive to themselves and to each other, where they are, and are they simultaneously positive to the value of not just the what really happened before anything now that we could remember normally? And I mean through some psychic means that we all do. In other words, there's a method of thought and of contemplation, a nature of it that would have answered our questions. For example, the reason we have to discern how hyper-Native American rights, as their own as Native American rights, how these were first separated from them, and with the involvement of people that had already been separated to abridged forms of their own ancient sciences, which was shared. The species individually grouped together value difference the way nature showed us before sciences became tactically, criminally foreign influence in semi-ancient times. And it's really that and how it became consciously, simultaneously, hyper-tactically and slash tactically. And the slash part is maintained. Where and how, for example, self-value uses of the names of locations, areas, and states, and of countries are with logic. For example, that can't defend itself and afford properly what emotions are about. So one of the things people do, and summaries of things, what they are about. So this breaching method knew that no one had an identity to defend, but they would be trying to defend it anyway, as fact-keeping nature. This thing was a sophistication here before anyone was born. It took part effectively with better than perfectly, increasingly perfectly child abuse method that was as sickly distinctly from how it is an elderly abuse method. That was as sickly distinctly from how it is consciously against each middle-aged person. To keep how sickly not distinctly also measured and maintained. Everyone has styles of logic far short of capable of being capable of defending that and of affording ourselves anywhere the species body is standing from proper uses of short words led by revelations. We have the chorus of black pupils and the whites of eyes is abridged. It is more probable and is more practical. It is demonstrable that the Legion first, like the title of Julius Caesar, it's for example, it came from before him. Every physical identity had its invisible, complete identity come before it because of what is actually demonstrated. When you do not leave out what is actually capable of being discerned, when you use what is invisible but still discernible as experience. And therefore, what we see with our eyes open and or closed. The identity of space / existence is what we see, discern. It is surging through all things alone, please learn. And even through the force, whatever course it takes. So, in other words, the significance of this is also, I told you, I called up a school with a since proven child abuser principal, and there were more names involved with it. There was a Brian, and demonstrated involved with it. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. I'm not saying he was physically there involved, but he was involved with physical involvements where they were having kids pretend passions and emotions through time with medical communities, foreign and domestic, who have also been describing the behaviors of others criminally. They've been using other pretended motivations from where and how they've been little sneaks at all locations, like with studies and things like that. And I call them sneaks because, in other words, we have to get to where everyone's a victim predator, blaming on other things, others, ourselves. The relevance of this too, because these are interreligious spots, names, families, involved with identity theft, fraud method, slander method. But measuring where people are going, put people in classes to pretend they know each other. All exceptions used criminally because exception nature, how it works as hypernative. No matter who you are, you want it to be and think like the Native Americans. But like the Native Americans, you and them don't have individually grouped or together anyone valuing, for example, the significance of where and how and why, since before our founding parents were even born, the suburbs, their nature, scale, design, identity of the grounds, identity of relationship to the ground's actual hyper-native identity of relationship to itself. And then further, hyper-Native American relative to the breaching method that made that distinct from hyper-Native American. But it is still hyper-Native American / Native American. And so all Americans, whether they realize it or not, crave to be hyper-Native American, because we have to use the name of our location, areas, and states, and greatest attainable power / might as a body, as a part of the species system, not just with our species, and not just with ourselves. Cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall. That's proof right there. There's an identity of relativity. That is they have the distinct identities of our body have a semi-nature relationship to our complete body. There are proofs that instead of calling it the semicolon, they used to call it the semi-victory. And victory itself would be discerned relative to the discernment of only an extent of the hyper-invisible, but still discernible, which requires the nature of a method of contemplation to make use by it and by individuals. And where and how, this is relative to where and how the order of the finite is distinct from the order of what is active groups and what is together, and the value of to what is to come here now. We can anticipate tomorrow another day will rise. See, a lot of the things we all identity of the ground, voices, and then further as identity of the grounds, voices, the ground itself, its locations. This method understood how that worked. Nature, some ways better than we do now. And we understand some ways better than they do then. This is how simultaneous nature stays increasingly in demonstration of the value of the discernment, of the value of discerning, of the discernment of hyper-simultaneous nature, distinctly from other identities of simultaneous nature, such as individual, grouped, and species, where and how, why actually manifest. Also, the science and the syntax relevant to it, and the passions and emotions treatments, good and or bad. They were our simultaneous identity treatments. They were our simultaneously incapable of affording use by the order of the finite being having been forbid and having been applied to by a breaching method that is relevant to where and to how single individuals are recorded, involved with more, and there's a bunch of them, but just as ones of them, they're involved with more predicate acts against humans than there are streets in Hartford, for example. there's a Leahy family and there's a Lombardo. There are Lombardo families and Leahy families that have been involved with Wethersfield Police and state police families and FBI with Wethersfield into parts of Wethersfield and with my street, also with CIA and their or their family members, and things like that were recorded various ways on Facebook and on other pages. And so they have also narratives where they'll say and do and act and pretend anything to form subject treatments that leave out what came first. And following mandated law are here. They have roles with an identity theft, fraud, slander method. Like, for example, and this is where they have the religious spots and various campuses where are involved at the same time with the principal child defender and with uses of Twitter, with relevant uses of upskirt pictures and rape threats. New Britain Superior Court has rape threats against me that are also people involved with the child defenders on the registry as leaders of kids and people associated with leaders of kids. Now, even if they made that up because they have roles with acting teachers, that they were implied with their roles with the men and women who are involved also with a whole bunch of other countries, where how the investigators themselves have roles with all kinds of natures of things and aspects manifest with those known, where statistics are dealt with. See, differentially better than perfectly, increasingly, they've been using remotely, criminally foreign influence, certain type of victim as the interbranch individually grouped in together, as the overt criminal enterprises, as the individually grouped together with them kept needing to hide the same lies with their worst patients and criminals, that relevant to where and to how the order of the finite has stayed forsaken, relevant to where and to how there are, they've been pretending people had conversations with them to hide what they were doing, and pretending to be isms. They're a complete remote possession of the political parties because of the way they fight with each other's logic. There was a complete remote possession of that, relevant to where and to how what is actually recorded. They were criminally foreign influenced unfoldings. And at the campuses, they were educated at everybody, sickly distinctly too. The array, the difference was also and is also effectively needed and used, where and how all that was left out, where and how we all want to be that hyper native system in science that goes unabridged, the Constitution unabridged. We want all appearances of justice must satisfy all appearances of justice. We don't want criminal insidiousness interpretations of that, pretending someone, oh, that's an immoral act. How many agree about this and start fights about that? And then, these are people controlling fun at each age, but by controlling the substances too, and by attaching people to fake uses of them. That makes a whole bunch of control of the locations, everyone around them, from other things, a whole bunch of their colleagues. There's a whole bunch of wasted healthcare money for when there's real healthcare there. And more that crept into the real healthcare. Because these are people speaking with fact-keeping nature-oriented predicate acts predators. There are a whole bunch of people from UConn involved with the FBI and with Los Solitos and with leaderships of Afghanistan and with other countries that have on off the Wethersfield Town Library, Wethersfield schools, roles with sequence shifts, forced, tricked, or persuaded, where and how they were child abused. Now, if people want to debate such, because they already got locked into using my name and others' names as roles with recorded relevant wire crime methods, only capable of being natures of police taking records and uses of their own names and others' names. So they have Meadowgate and Randy Lane where they put that sign up there's a Kerr family there's an officer Jerry Miller, and there are other officers further I caught with the former police chief Cintron, and his family and extended family also have been through between the campuses roles with people like there's a Webb school has something to do with it. They made an exception pretending to know me. Like they'll say I'm lying if I say I don't know him. I don't know him. He came to Webb school to make a criminal exception years ago. The Reno Mazzucato. In other words, and I was only polite to them ever at Mazzucato Bakery. You know that I didn't know that. In other words, they got and it's not all their fault, but you know, this is where they keep the interbranch, the overt criminal enterprises, the private ones. They're you know, all kept needing to hide the same, you know, styles of logic. Can't defend themselves, uses of other people's names. They can't defend that and afford to have at any location anyone use short words properly. Anyone not to have their identity stolen by some fakes that don't even know them, in collusion with the people that are influenced around us is actually recorded. You know, it's not. There are tons of ways to demonstrate that all investigators have been used remotely since founding. Pounding drums. They are measuring the breaching method measures and maintain when they make positive or negative identity treatments, when their little theater speeches about January 6th. When they pretend passions, emotions, and to care about the people who died on it. They don't care. They don't care enough about the order of the finite, and enough to be, you know, they stay collusion. There are uses of that pathological logic that has denied for too long the revelation surging. From I told you guys, I didn't even get to speak at the campus. All kinds of they tell people to hold on. Then they make it. Someone else tells you something, and they make a statement that's not even true. There's also a Mr. Emmett involved with the schools, intercity, intra-city, and inter cities through time. These are also interstates. People involved with Rhode Island campuses. Johnson and Wales has roles with a whole bunch of state police and religious psychopaths involved with identity thefts, frauds, planting evidences with a Zeno family, and he was demonstrated roles. That's why he said Jew around me a lot, and I never responded. You know, I know he was made to pretend he knows me. And so this is relevant because he has roles with the names further involved at Rocky Hill campuses and CCS, Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, and places on and off the campuses involved. There are proofs too. They had someone expose themselves to the kids near the school that was relevant to it. You know, in other words, there are ones with the name Tomorrow and Rocky Hill and Wethersfield, and they have roles with Koreans, and they have roles with police forms and military, foreign and domestic, associated with, and other countries associated with Daryl Chandler. I don't know his sister. I assume she knows my name because those are people involved with identity thefts, frauds against me, putting a little illusions into databases with the FBI. They have roles with place spots in Newington, with the houses involved, with the names involved, with the Wethersfield Police and the FBI and the other agencies, and the rest of the people on the Child Defender Registry before that. And as they were crimes with their doctors and jails and their family members, also through time. There was a Subby Bajario and a whole bunch of people tied to him. I never responded, and I made the all exceptions, exception nature when demonstration, the same thing. You know, he was involved with all fraud against me, and identity theft, fraud, slander with a Judge Smith, and others involved with all kinds of natures of organized crime and roles with natures of child abuse, and roles with the names through time at the corner of Griswold Street and Fairlane Drive, and Fairlane Drive and Carriage Hill Drive. And also recently with the reports of a home break-in, and those reports recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the names, further involved with guns, knives, and poisons and smoke threats on my street, and their ties intercity to the spots. On off Central Connecticut State University, a whole bunch of names recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed things, and demonstrated things that said true. They're involved with the intelligence community from Wethersfield through time, involved with all kinds of criminal uses of all kinds of instances, recordings of instances into databases, all kinds of tricks, like little magic tricks, like wire crime methods through time. There is an Oliveri family, and there are a whole bunch of people on off the state judicial branch offices tied to a Potter family. I also don't know the Potter family. I had a class with a Potter. I never had a problem with him one time. I never had any personal conversation with him. Was never rude in his class. That's also tied one. The only time I ever saw on campus was real fast, and Eric Mendez. He was, and that's when he. That's how when he was, and then was real fast. Joseph DeMorrow, one of the Joseph DeMorrows. He was also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, a whole bunch of ways involved with various natures, distinct natures of areas, overt criminal enterprises and private ones, involved with falsified police reports, rolls together, where these are people involved with the investigations, investigators, also forcing kids that gave affidavits about this. And when they forced them to say things that weren't real, and they kept making all these problems for them, and they forced them to bring up those subjects. I didn't do anything wrong. They made all these things up, and then they made then when exceptions were made, they use that to make up more things too, high about their motivations too, because we have men and women who are involved with identity thefts and frauds, relevant to where and to how they communicate through their kids and through themselves, as that they are criminal insidiousness natures, involved with little magic tricks with databases, and by timing where people are going to be, and by timing, regular communications, effectively used to keep a whole bunch of ways criminally foreign influence predators that need to pretend other and are shown so and how to get away with it by pretending they're the ones pretending to be against crimes too. But it's differential. There are a certain type of victim predator, hyper victim, hyper predator. It is unbelievable how you guys could not just clear the sky. Who's going to debate that there's a problem with New York City? Who's going to debate that there's a problem with the black of eyes, black pupils, whites of eyes bridge? And they still left out the breaching method when they have the logic with this, with who they tell you are experts. The experts, what will prevent you from using one sentence, let alone. So we have more people involved, fabricating audio and video transcripts to pretend people didn't make sense over the phone, where they don't let people speak over the phone, and they keep putting more names in and making more statements and confessions. They also have roles with the Connecticut news companies that fabricated emails. They also did this with people associated with the corners of Church Street in Old Wethersfield through time. And these are people also inter-campuses and intra-campuses roles, planting little illusions, identity theft, fraud, slanders, as also relevant to where and how they were child abused. And their narratives by their motives, because they've been screaming. These are people involved with getting, involved with spreading lies against strangers, because the roles, like a whole bunch of people intercities involved with development projects and things like that, associated with former Mayor Gold, other mayors' houses. This is how they keep them like unsafe. The Supreme Court justices, they have people, their reactions are wrong to everything, and their collusion is what leads up to it, because they cannot appreciate the order of the finite. So we have a whole bunch of criminal enterprises over there speaking about their passion and emotion online freely, but we're getting blocked. Relevant to where they have a whole bunch of people from UConn involved with a whole bunch of lawyers I don't know if they went to Yukon, where they went, Trantola and Trantola. And I don't know who Golf Law is, but Golf Law, they had a Trantola and Trantola, the timing of their ads on different Connecticut news companies. They will not fix. They put me in a fake conversation with a Roger Susanna, who has roles with some child offenders all along Route 3 and on off the state judicial branch, and his roles with recent reports of stuff along Route 3. And with the names, they have roles with the corners of the streets relevant, and people with names on Morgan's. I don't forget the name of the street, off of Randy Lane, involved with overt criminal enterprises and with sexual circles with the security and the other agencies, intelligence community, and judges and stuff tied to the Town Line Drive Shopping Center and to a spot on the Vaughan Turnpike, and their roles with Central Connecticut State University through time, and with people from other states and other cities and other countries. They've been hiding lie progressions and illusions by saying and acting different things at locations where and how investigations and investigators are have been used remotely in collusions, not wanting to be differentially criminally foreign influence the same way the overt criminal enterprises are, but they are increasingly the possession, their logic together. So when you see those sick subject treatments, leaving out exception nature, when you try to watch Fox News, when you try to watch CNN, these are CNN sources on off Paul Manafort Drive, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with database crimes that are between campuses through times, involved with people from Vermont, people from Massachusetts, people from Rhode Island, people from Connecticut, with interbranch criminal and overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and that insidiousness of people A through Z relative to this child abuse method that I caught. You all self-valued roles with too. And, so you have to follow mandated law. Now I'm telling on the child abuse is I want my response too. And I want a response for the teachers in the background making things up, and as the interbranch, because I want the rest of them with the exception nature too. Because you guys brought that up, because those are the names involved with that Judge Smith and this Judge Killian speaking fake things into records with their patients and criminals involved criminally on my street before I was ever in that place 3 times forced too. And with this Leahy family involved with it. So let's get them on paper with the police file. Let's go. See, they have a problem with it, where they have the time treatments of places. These are people involved with the elderly homes, sickly, distinctly timed too, because they have remote uses of sick natures of courts individually grouped it together like probate courts. You think those are human beings that spoke for them, the VA? Don't separate the VA from the elderly homes, because that's the same rat trap, and that's the same conjunction to the interbranch breach. Now one must teach. Free speech. Yes. Maxine, I teach you things, but long. City, can you hear me? People of New York City, appear. Can you hear me? Come, YouTuber Anthony Wall, live. This is Romulus Science. I'll stop that in case anyone comes later to watch the video. I'll be sitting there begging, please, man. Otherwise, I would, man. I would. Because I told you. So we have people discrediting legitimate information. And now there are off-campuses locations that were demonstrated and recorded, confessed, and confirmed involved with the CCSU, Trinity College, relevant predicate acts, uncharged but standing allusions with where and how. Investigators, vetting identities. I use that phrase I learned from Donald Trump. But what the president should say, because I've been trying to read their dreams, because I read on YouTube, I learned that Native Americans said that we must read each other's dreams. Now, I should have, but their dreams are extensive. Their dreams, the Native American rights, are bridged distinctly from their hyper Native American rights. And everyone has hyper Native American rights who's American. Everyone has hyper rights, no matter what country you're from. We are from a hyper system where the hyper simultaneous is tactical ulterior from the nature, method, and uses of simultaneous per descriptions of the mind. Control. So in other words, and the order and the value of the order of the finite. So we have so many fake jobs, fake integrity of logic, identities who rely on others and get away with that because employed were criminal insidious natures of positive treatments, negative treatments, identity treatments, and uses of the locations since before that to keep all that to all kinds of other natures of corruption also stemmed from the original one and when it was being sustained, not just against Native Americans, now in another phase, Native Americans with colonists on them. Now in another phase, Native Americans coupled with the phenomenon of our founders who had to hide their roles, getting the Constitution said unabridged, and getting Marbury versus Madison said to mean, quote, all real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice, unquote. Boxings. It teaches things. The sciences share an identity where they appear not to share an identity. They special. The value of Earth's a special difference. Couples with it. It means that are stronger than all power and might together. All things even grouped and together. Relevant to its identity of relationship to Earth's a special difference where it will force away from here. We could be systems. We could be systems other than its own. Get everyone for part of it. The entire time, it's demonstrating negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and demonstration of it. Excuse me. And so the breaching method knew that this would take place. The breaching method knew simultaneously in defenses of themselves against the breaching method, they would defend themselves wrong, not knowing now how to counter the criminal insidiousness nature. They knew they were shown they needed to counter, and physical problems they were shown they need to counter as fact treatment nature. But the breaching method knew that could be separated from the means to do that correctly. The human fact treatment nature is in an identity and it is in a semi-ancient identity theft / fraud / slander method that understands, same thing again, slash hyper with it. And the same thing understands how we are hyper additionally, voices at the same time as the ground, and with even more between everything. And its identity of relationship to itself. Again, going to reveal evolution's fruits, gifts, means out here, nowhere, here, especially regarding where we are, fact, treatment, nature, and or it's going to force it from here, force nature, space, nature, transfer. Leaf of IDs, more probably was about that, revealed by ancient pantheism, more probably about the identity of the hyper simultaneous. And we're not supposed to agree about the name of it, but it is an identity of volume, and demonstrates that we're supposed to syntactically describe it that way, because it is an only increasing value to its identity, to our identity of logic. Where relevant are how these are three distinctly bound identities of volume, individual being grouped, and as always grouped in ages, areas, sexes, could probably, any way they could be invented, and altogether the species body bound by its science. They give that again. Hyper native, obviously, no matter who you are, that's where you were separated from since semi-ancient times. Other words and positive and logic was given to you to justify. In other words, we have means, even if we don't want it for ourselves. And I'm not saying just for a reservation. We could open up. There should never be a Native American without land, and we could and will change this. Just believe in this video, to do a collaboration. Who wants to be the actors? And I'll write the script. Tailor made for you to make you look good as an actor. But and simultaneously can make everything to make you look good. You have to do it right. You have to be about the identity of simultaneous nature. So there are revelations stemming from where and how and why. Time treatments deny the significance of when I said I caught things on a campus. And see, now they're playing games, asking parents and kids questions about such, where and how they leave out finite details. They have roles so when I was in middle school, there were kids that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with distinct, overt criminal enterprises, and they had timed roles with uses of corners and uses of people's names, where the identity theft, fraud, slander method is relevant, and it also how it is recorded sickly distinctly against everyone in the suburbs, from how in the cities, and how relevant to the exceptions. This is a completely fact treatment nature oriented predicate acts / hyper predicate acts delivery system method, which we're going to define slavery as hyper predicate acts delivery system method, hyper criminal insidiousness delivery system method. I am not a lawyer. I have the lawyers recorded involved, like this Trantolo, involved with conspiracy, pretending people make conspiracy theories, and they use the word government, not me. They have roles with the government, per their words, and with retired and standing interbranch associated with WFSB through time, with worse than criminal incompetence, and roles with gun crimes, drugs crimes, medicines crimes, child offenders, and this brought up too names associated with body dumping spots and next to them, the uses of that relevant. Also, a Faenza family on off the state judicial branch offices in spots next to it through time, involved with people on off Trinity College with a Oliveri family, and a whole bunch of people tied to had conversations with teachers I had who I never had conversations with, and little exceptions were used criminally too. See, this is making people use other people's names so they can lie about motivations, which they were recorded doing. They have rape threats made from a Facebook page of New Britain Superior Court. And then they made a whole bunch of other Facebook pages. And this was before the child. This is Rolls with the child abuser principal's campus. These are people when I was in middle school. They made confessions that strangers saw me out for it because they have roles with a former Mayor Gold. I don't know either. Never had a word of conversation in my life. He's involved with a whole bunch of people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Were involved with other kids and their families and with their own, with federal crimes with evidences, natures of identity theft, fraud, slander. Everyone knows that, but everyone speaks to others. And I found out years later it was true about Joe Aiello being involved. That he'd been involved with investigators saying, doing things at locations, so they keep using time treatment simultaneously too fast, too slow, with relevant courts, with relevant depositions, with relevant crime scenes, with relevant spots next to campuses, with relevant medical locations involved with crimes on off campuses, with identity theft, fraud, slanders with them, and with the businesses next to them, with the branches of government, with the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and seriousness of people A through Z. Now, that's all that's recorded relevant to where and to how. First of all, because these names brought up pretending passions and emotions as means to pretend they had conversations with me first. And this is sustained through time, tricks with the teachers in my school, and games with the people around everyone. And they have roles with predatory actions and methods on off the kids' campus, the kids' classmates, placements, also tied to the fake things that and passions and emotions recorded and pretended by the news with the parents of some of the kids. I caught involved with the principal child defender and against the other kids, and they make themselves value roles because they're asking them questions about things they're not even. They've been asking people questions about fake conversations they had with people, and then when they answer yes or no's to things, they're pretending that's yes or no to mean other than it does. So they can keep using time treatments where they use simultaneously too fast, too slow, interbranch locations while they've been stacking fake things in locations. So they increasingly can't afford for themselves or others to have discerned what is actually discernible regarding when the worst things happen and regarding how each location is actually manifest. I tell it best. So these are serious things. The ground below our feet is tactically denatured. And then further, after being, in other words, it didn't just tactically separate the reasons, separate Native Americans from the hyper Native American education. So to discern that unabridged, and that which they would have had the breaching method not been sustained upon them, they would have met they would have memory now. We would have memory now. The human species is in a trap. Species body all at one as one must wrap. We have cars. It's before cars. Just with a car. Even with a car, no wagon. Someone else had a car. In other words, no money. If we had the right, if a president of the court said, "Okay, you guys have the right, whatever you guys could beg for on YouTube," then people would hear and build. We could build. We're not even builders and stuff like that. We build better than they did in colonial times. I learned in Central Connecticut State University they wanted to build better than that, but the laws were against anyone speaking about that. Everyone was fact, human nature, enslaved. And see, we have this left out at each age because they care about the sensibilities of people dishonestly. And there's a breaching method by where and how. The people who pretend passions and emotions about hate speech. These are ones using the hate speech and roles with the people using the hate speech at locations, on-off interbranch locations, and doing little tricks to set up exceptions. There's a Chet Casper. I never had a verbal conversation with him in my life. He's involved with investigations. Investigators he non-verbally demonstrated and confirmed also at those locations along the Berlin Turnpike and at the spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike, involved with an O'Brien family and with people from Yukon and with the military, involved with those spots next to the state capitol, and with the Jonathan Mayano and Mark Violet, Eric Oliveri, and John Mayano recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed their roles with federal rules of evidence as crimes, and with child abuses and child offenders and natures of identity theft, fraud, slander, sequence shifts relevant. It has something to do with their roles with Elm Streets and Wethersfield and Newing and Rocky Hill. And the news media gets involved in other people's business by contributing to cases criminally and at locations, planting evidences, including broadcasting them. They have fake conversations with me. They have fake. They attach others to fake words about cases they pleaded other in and won, and have roles with the winners in it. In other words, and they pretended the wrong outcome because they've been planting evidences from locations and with broadcasts that haven't been used in cases on a whole bunch of people from Wethersfield recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with abuses of kids around intercities through time. And there's one kid named Kyle Gill and his sister, Tanya Gill, I believe, and I believe it's Tanya Cologne now. Now these are interbranch family members involved with prosecutors and judges, also with their abuse and uses of them to say, do, act, pretend things at locations. Their roles with planting evidence, federal rules of evidence is crime, natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders, methods, falsified police reports, roles with methods of that are relevant as predicate acts methods. And now these are people also involved with the corner of Griswold Street and Fairlane Drive with people on off Trinity College associated with the Joshua Stryker, involved also with the Joshua Julian, further with the Principal Child Offenders Campus Facebook page and other Facebook pages, intercampuses, where they've been involved with planting evidences, also a fake letter in the English department associated with people associated with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, on Trinity College, and with various natures of federal criminals since before they were caught, even if that was made up with John LeConte, Dominic Lapriata, and Thaddeus Grabowski. They were also recorded roles with federal rules of evidences, crimes, and child abuses, and worse, on-off Fox Connecticut News, and with names on-off WFSB, and with names on-off WTNH. There are proofs that they have rolled. No, there's a Spada family that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed a delayed confession, but rolls with a Fred Gruzet and with various natures of judges and prosecutors associated with boyfriends she had that with and in her family too, like the Della Fera family, who also pretended to know me and made fake exceptions and had roles with federal rules of evidence as crimes. And they also confessed, demonstrated, recorded, confirmed it's because of their roles with judges and prosecutors and police forms associated with the shopping centers and intercampuses. Middlesex Community College also has roles with officers forging and switching names, and involved with extended family members of the people involved with the child abusers, also involved with that. And they were a whole bunch of people tied to forensics locations, also brought up by Joshua Julian on the Facebook page of the Principal Child Offenders Campus. Oh, he was, are his roles, identity theft, fraud, slander, saying fake things between campuses, between Facebook pages, Identity theft, fraud, slanders, games of men and women through kids' campuses and with people from off the campuses, and how they kept and keep collusions. They have a girl they abused when I was a kid associated with this. And then they took a picture of her in the news media. I believe she's one of the teachers at the school now. I believe her name was Michelle Sanquest. Only communications with her I had. She told on me I had a knife. That was true. I ordered it through the catalog in the school, Boys Life catalog. I have no hard feelings for that. These are people that brought her into this, and through time with a whole bunch of people tied to Lance Cuddy. I never had a conversation with Lance Cuddy in my life, and he's got brothers and family involved with forensics locations and with federal rules of evidence crimes, and confessions, with a whole bunch of people tied to a former Mayor Gold, involved with criminal uses of classes I had. At 6th grade, he was hiding up lipoaggressions he was doing from years earlier when he had his daughter pretend passions and emotions from out of nowhere to pretend it looked like I had communications with her before that. And there were none. Backseat fun. There were also corners near where they used to live that are criminally involved now with the police forms and their patients involved with my street criminally, with some untimely deaths roles they had and have that also brought up the principal child defenders campus, and more child abuses and roles with the interbranch. Then various natures, of course, got brought into this because they were already involved with it. These are people I caught, like with Eric Burgess and men and women that work with Hartford Courts, plural, and New Britain Superior Court. They were involved with this before the World Trade Center, planting federal rules of evidence as crimes. Now, one of the people, when he was sitting out, one of the Joe DeMorals was sitting before the World Trade Center attack, right outside the where the people exit the food services in the main building. I forgot what they call it. I'm thinking community center. It's not community center. No, the student center at Central Connecticut State University. Now, this is one of the people leading up to a 2006 district court case in which former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, he has roles with a Mr. Abruzzi. And with DeMoro families, interstates and intercities, who have roles with people from Italy involved with psychiatry and psychology, and with drugs and medicines crimes with the kids, also with overt criminal enterprises, and people from a whole bunch of other countries who also have families involved with the medical, like nurses and stuff like that are involved with that, and they are kept needing to hide lipoaggressions from other locations and uses of their locations too. And they're shown sometimes needs to run in there and have a bunch of them at once and do little tricks where they put fake things in databases. And they have roles with Connecticut. Interbranch has been switching names. And they recorded themselves pretending passions and emotions since founding. Passions and emotions, everything is about the simultaneous. And that's because the simultaneous is about the hyposimultaneous simultaneously. So someone tell say the judges who are hiding this from Judge Napolitano should say sorry to him, especially if they have the right to, relative to how many countries are on all these campuses. I don't know Eric Olson and Matt Olson, where and how I spoke as if I did on Facebook. That was because they had already before that demonstrated they needed to pretend I knew him. Sometimes I give them illusions. In other words, so there's an Eric Olson, a Matt Olson, a whole bunch of Olsons on off Trinity College that I never had communications with. That Eric Oliveri, is someone I only know who sought me out to make confessions, demonstrations, confirmations. And there's pattern between uses of people like, but there's a singular use of people like that, relevant where and how. I've been observing since I was a kid, where and how the human spirit and the human nature as it actually has been prevented free speech, while simultaneously other is pretended offensively. All we need to do is get mad about something like how the course of black people's rights of eyes is abridged, while simultaneously we're standing on tactically denatured suburbs since before our founding parents were even born, that were designed while slavery was entrenched north and south, and that was entrenched through their lifetimes and after it, because if they had to hide their roles getting the Constitution the way we know it today, told to get it unabridged and told to get it where real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. See, what had fake interpretations of that self-value has to pretend that, see the dirty mouth on that guy on that police from the Washington D.C. That police with how he describes other politicians and stuff, such like that. These are fishing little predators. And they have these little groups as gangs, and they're gonna pretend that they don't discern where and how they can't. They don't have, they have an ad about isms, people being against, for example, what is it called? Anti-Semitism. There are religious spots of various natures that have been offensively pretending roles with identity thefts and frauds, including with mayors, and with cliques that also speak those things. This is boxing. They're hurting the kids, so they have something about the corner of Route 3, Maple Street, and Meadowgate too. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, further involved with the rest of Twitter. Twitter involved also with the FBI, with the Ian and the former director of the FBI involved with some upskirt pictures further with the principal child offender and the rape threats with the various passion crimes of the courts, because I caught them before the World Trade Center. I had told one of the Jojo DeMoro, motion, stability, identity, difference, and being a bomb. Vaccines around. In other words, there was a girl there. I don't know her name yet, but she could tell you. These are people that train state police, FBI, military families, military police families. They've been little identity theft, fraud, slanders, cliques tied to people that went to schools I went to from the youngest ages, where they connected them with insidious little instances where the only way I know them. And with complete strangers. That's why they have complete strangers. They pretend that you know them. Oh, there's a picture of you. I don't know them. Like with what's his face? Paul Abted. I do not know Paul Abted and his sister. They have recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. One of the ones with this, with the names on and off Hartford Hospital, with this Violet family. And doctors involved with their patients and criminals, even killers and people next to the body stumping spots involved, fabricating conversations about legal cases too with them. Fake conversations with me about my father. And they said that police were surveilling my father, and I pretended I talked to them or anyone else about anything like that. I never talked about anyone surveilling my father by the police. These are people that have been with judges and prosecutors as people involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and all kinds of ways, locking the little girls, sexually abused, medically abused, and everyone uses others' names. They would rather use other people's names and counter those things wrongly, leaving out finite details, things that don't even have to be. Because you guys have people from the youngest ages, from the grammar school, even before they come to the grammar school, they have this rolls with this. From what they have the 3 spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike, whole bunch of people use my name at the 3 spots at the end of the turnpike. A whole bunch of different ways have roles with an O'Brien family, with the executive police forms of Hartford Police and Wethersfield Police involved with the individuals like this Leahy family and with this Judge Killian and the ones before him I caught. Judge Napolitano, let's get them on the paper now. Let's get a response for that school. The principal, I don't need the principal offender. I want a response for the judge for the other guy. There's a guy named Emmett who is one of the ones, and there are more teachers' families and principals involved with names involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and the intelligence community interbranch names that have been fabricating things in the databases together, fake motivations for it too. All exceptions show the same thing. That's why I have to get them on the paper, Your Honor. These are also people using all sides of names at all sides of campuses for identity thefts and frauds roles, relevant criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and precedents originally and still, you know. All right. Please follow mandated law, Your Honor. YouTube, please, get me them on paper now. One name in sequence, Connecticut interbranch. Now, they put me, I was in their presence. Every time they keep telling, they won't let you speak, and then they tell you something. They keep telling fake things too. They switch names. I did not get a police report. They've attached the charges with switching officers' names and no writing. Get them on writing now, because they did worse, because they have more people associated with the area involved with the rape threats of the on and off the former locations, even online. Now these are people on and off Trinity College, on and off Central Connecticut State University with state police families and FBI families and Wethersfield police families involved with this conversation too, and with the names that brought up and the people that live next to that corner since before the new people live there now. Here, and their roles with KKK themed, black themed, and interreligious nutbags with the identity theft, fraud, slander, sequence shifts too. They need the isms and stuff like that too. So we're gonna deal with this, and we're gonna find out who told and what affected the Paul Zano would say Jew around me. The only times I ever saw him when he was talking around my neighbor involved with the Phil Collo. There's a Phil Collo further involved with a Bob Chase, with the principal child offender, various natures of courts, and people from other countries involved with, and doctors also with drugs and medicines, crime, physical delusions, criminally foreign influence, factory nature. Get them on paper now. I have to beg you, people, make sure